welcome to the Seventh Voice podcast again. We have another episode today, and I'm your host, Aziz Adesanya. I have a very special guest with me today. She's a mortgage broker, she's a mother, she's someone I even call a sister. She's from my community. So actually, she's the first person from my community coming to my
really?
podcast. Yes.
Okay.
And I want to introduce you to Dammy. A lot of you might know her as Mortgage by Dammy on Instagram. She's the best person that can introduce herself. Dammy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me. Like you said, my name is Dammy. I'm a mortgage broker, and yes, I'm very active on Instagram. That's my favorite social media. And yeah, I enjoy what I do, so I'm super excited to have this chat today.
I know you enjoy what you do. What I see on social media, what you put there, it's obvious that you love what you do.
Yes.
And that's one thing about me as well. I think real estate is part of me. There are other things that I do that I'm also passionate about, but I think whenever you're doing something you love, it's kind of show. People can see that. And I want you to take us back to, because I know you're a mortgage broker, you're a mother, and we also have something that make me feel like we came from the same background. You worked in IT before,
yes.
And you work in data science, I believe, which is what I was doing before I got into real estate too.
And then we ran away.
And then we ran away.
Into real estate.
I think for me, it's me realizing that I love working with human more. I love having that conversation. It's either going to be having a business or helping people to do something, providing service. Real estate come as something natural that I feel like, yeah, I love it. I planned to do it like years ago. But I was thinking, okay, if I didn't do it at that time that I planned to do it, maybe I would do it in 2025. But everything changed with the conversation I had with a friend in 2021, and I got into it, and since then I love it.
Yeah.
I want us to like go back to your journey. How was it getting from IT? Like, because for me, I know what I felt from peers, from friends, from even some family members. Like, you're leaving IT to real estate. It doesn't align. That's what it felt, obviously. But for me, I think that was not the way I saw it. I still love technology. I still love coding, to be very honest. I didn't do it much anymore, to be honest, because of the business. But I still love it, right? How was that transition moving to IT into like mortgage business?
Okay.
I know you're going to hear a lot of no's from people.
Yes, it wasn't an intention. I think for me, my background, so in my undergrad, I did economics and math, but I've always liked numbers, statistics. I would take, in undergrad, they tell you, you have core subject, take electives. My electives were like statistics.
Oh, okay.
Because that's literally how to me, it's like super easy. I don't have to read like long text about political science. So I enjoy it, and I find it easy to understand. So that's been my number. So that's how I kind of got into data science. Obviously, I started as a research analyst, data analyst, and if you are in that world, like there's a huge move to data science, right?
Exactly.
So that's what I was doing, coding, machine learning models, so very
technical.
My
goodness, don't even
very in the weeds. But a lot of that, so where I was, at least we're like a central hub, data science, different departments bring in their requests, we churn out the data, the report, and we explain it. But that's such a big barrier in terms of like any coding person, you realize like you can see one chart, but there could be like so much effort that have gone into it.
Yes.
And when people either don't use it or they don't understand it, I feel very frustrated. I'm like, do you know how much information this is? Do you know how magical, if you were to apply this could actually change the thing? So I think the barrier of, I think like, it's almost like a waste of time really if no one is actually using all the hard work that
or maybe the company might even say they want to go. I'm sorry for putting you there. Some of the things that I see as barrier for me as well is they'll come to you with a project, and at the beginning you ask them, why do they even need this project?
Exactly.
So you yourself, you're not interested in that project yet, but they give you a little bit of reason, and then you start. Coding is like art. You're like when you're doing coding, you think about the end product. Now you get into it, you massage the data, you love it. And then you're about to finish, they might tell you, sorry, the company is changing direction. They're not using that project anymore. And you're like, what is happening?
Very frustrating. But still I enjoyed it. But I took it upon myself to always like, okay, translate I would explain. I'll also ask questions. Do you understand? And maybe like get them to buy in. So I really liked
The part of it.
that side of it. But along the other side, I also started like investing in real estate. I'm like, okay, this is great. And for some reason, I find mortgage a little bit similar because I see mortgage as also a technical part. It can be a barrier to people buying their first home, buying investment properties. So when I tried to start buying investment properties, I started to learn more about mortgages, and then my friends started asking me, so how are you getting all these properties and everything? I'm like, okay, so I just felt like there's so much options. It's not just one bank, and if you really put your mind to it. So that's actually why I decided to say, okay, I'm going to get my mortgage license.
Okay.
So when I then started, I then saw the same similarities in terms of barrier. There's so many exceptions, so many different rules, but people don't really understand it, and it's a barrier. So I saw like, okay, I actually like this. It has some similarities with what I was doing professionally. But over time, it just got very difficult to do both because they are both like time consuming.
Oh, so you were doing both before you?
Yeah,
even,
initially
okay.
when I got my mortgage license, I didn't just like quit my job.
So you were still
So
working.
I was still doing both, but eventually got super busy, and I think it was difficult for me to let go of the data side because I've invested so much. I've gone 4 years undergrad. I've done my master's. I actually also started my PhD.
Wow.
I also went back to...
All in data?
Yes. I also
Oh
went
my
back
goodness.
to UFT and I got a data science certificate.
Wow.
And like a couple of months after I started mortgage. So I was kind of trying to hang on to it more like I've
Yeah, you
pretty
feel
much
like you're leaving
dedicated,
something,
yeah.
you're about to abandon what you've really nurtured in your
Yeah.
own career.
Yeah, and I also felt bad for my parents because they've also supported me
All through.
this journey.
But I'm sure they're glad now.
Well, we are getting there. We are getting there. Well, this is also completely new. They don't even know. Like Nigeria does not have any
I mean, there's nothing mortgage
Yeah,
back home.
yeah.
So it's either you work in the bank or you work with credit union that they will still feel like
Yeah,
you're
it's
in,
a different-
financial. But mortgage, I've never heard the term mortgage before I moved
No,
to Canada.
even me as well.
Never heard
Yeah.
of it. So, and I think, I like that you actually, for me, I think you still get it a little bit easy because I don't see you saying many people ask you why. Maybe your parents.
Yeah, no, people around me, because they also, while I was doing data, I already rose from the analyst role. I was an associate director. So they are like, wow, you're
Wow.
finally rising. Like, what is wrong
What
with
are
you?
you looking for?
Yeah, it was like, or it's like, oh, is mortgage so profitable that, and it wasn't like from that lens. It was more like, okay, I was doing the two. I really liked both. I've spent my life on one. This is more of like exploratory. So
yeah.
I decided to, what I told myself is like, okay, I'm going to take a break.
From
And
data?
From,
Data
yes.
science?
So
You never came back from that break?
no, I never came back from that break. So I've been on that break for like 2 to 3 years now. And so at least I wanted the option to explore where this would take me. I like the flexibility.
Yeah.
My parents are also like entrepreneurs, so they are business people. So I already knew that one day I wanted to go into this line of work. I just wasn't sure
Where it's going to be.
where it's going to be. So that's my transition. Since that break in quotes, I've been full-time. I love every day because everything is new.
Yes.
Everybody's different.
Exactly.
So
The
that's
conversation
been my
with
transition.
each person is different.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be the same process, but the conversation you have with people, some people will make it very easy for you because
Yeah.
one, they trust your knowledge.
Exactly.
Two, they kind of educated themselves and they got the right education because I'm not talking about just going online and just watching all this and that. They've asked questions, they've, joined webinars. So when you're working with them, you kind of enjoy the process. And some people, they just want to believe whatever negative that is there and they want to bring it to your doorstep. Now, when you bring it to your doorstep, how are you going to react? Now it's left for you
Yep.
to see, am I going to work with this person or not? So now I know how you got from data science into mortgage, which is easy transition. For me, it was not like that. I left data like completely for like a couple
Wow.
of months.
Very brave.
Do some, and you'll be even shocked that I left an offer that was on the table that was about $48,000 more than what I was earning in my previous company.
For some reason,
So-
I think that is life. Like once you are now ready to say, oh, finally I'm ready, then you start to get
Exactly. You start getting someone
opportunities.
to kind of bring you in there. Like I thought about real estate, but I didn't know when I'm going to start. And then I moved to another place and I spoke with a friend that I just met there, and his friend happens to have a brokerage, and we started talking. I used to teach people about blockchain, and I started teaching them about blockchain, and that was when the conversation started coming in. I'm like, and the guy was like, I know you said you're interested in real estate, but why do you want to wait till 2025? Imagine if I've waited till 2025. So I started then. And as you said, the universe will bring something towards what you want. Immediately you open up on it. And now I know you transition into that, but what have you seen? I like that you start as an investor, actually, because I think that gave you a lot of opportunity to know both as a customer side, you understand that part. When you're helping people, you're letting them know that, see, I've done this. This is how it should go. How do you find it? Do you see any of your colleagues that they're not investors? Do you think it give you more opportunity than them, or you think it depends on how you just love what you do?
I think the investor piece is so important. Like, I don't think I would have been able to transition, honestly, into being a mortgage broker if I did not start investing. Because I was able to build a nest egg. Like, so I did plan it. So maybe if I was so dependent on my salary and I had not done that, I don't think I would have been brave enough to say, okay, I'm just going to quit my nice job with pension, everything, and then start this exploratory process. So I think the investment side, it just tells me there is opportunity in this. So I always looked at it like, okay, I just want to literally reinvest as much as possible into, because I feel like long term, I'm not necessarily getting financial freedom or wealth from my job. I'm getting it from the investment. And I even still look at that for my mortgage. I'm not looking at it as I'm going to get rich up being a mortgage broker. I look at it like I'm going to reinvest my income and then get independent or financially free from my investments.
So you see the investment as like the main end goal.
Yes.
And that can make the conversation with your client easier.
Yes.
Because when they see, I remember when I first started real estate, and to be very honest, first couple of months, someone asked me, have you bought your own real estate? No, I haven't then. When I bought my own investment property, I feel comfortable to tell them. And when you have that conversation with them, it's kind of easy. They know that, okay, you've done it. You're not just telling me to do it. And that's what I tell new agents now. Like, I'm also new, actually. I'm like going to 2 years now. I still see myself as a new agent. But I'm talking about people that started like a couple of months ago, like a year. The first thing I think you should do as an agent is try to see how you can get an investment property. If you try to do that, and you have that conversation with your client, they see it like, okay, he has done it too, right? So I like that you started as an investor. We are both immigrants, although you've been you've been in this country longer than I do. I'm not trying to age you in Canada, okay? But I know before we started the podcast, you told me how many years you've been here. I'm not going to mention.
I don't even like to mention it.
I'm not going to mention it on the podcast.
But it's been a while.
But you've been here longer than me, and I don't think the immigrant story changes. Either you've been here for 1 year, 5 years, it doesn't matter. All immigrants that move to Canada, they have that story. I'm going to make the question. 2 questions on that immigrant. One, what was your story as an immigrant when you first moved here? Second, immigrants that are moving, we are both from Nigeria, and as I said at the beginning of the podcast, you are the first. So you're the first person from my community to be on my podcast. How can immigrants, not only Nigerians, moving into Canada, how can they get their mortgage? What should they start to do in the first 6 months, or even first couple of months, so that they can get themselves ready to get mortgage? What will you advise them?
Okay. So I'll answer your first question. My immigrant journey, I came as an international student. So I actually did my undergrad here.
4 years?
Yes.
Oh.
So I didn't go to any uni in Nigeria. I literally graduated.
And you came here?
And then I came here 2 years after. I did a couple of programs in between.
Okay.
And so after my undergrad, I then did my master's. I was in the education space. And immigration and even the experience of immigrants was completely different, because then there were not as many immigrants. There was so many barriers. Like, imagine after spending all these years, finally get a 2 degrees, excellent grades, and then they're like, oh, sorry, you don't qualify. You don't have permanent residence, because I was an international student, or you don't have Canadian experience. So that took me aback, because I think going through, I thought like, all you need to do your due diligence, like pass, get good grades, your job is waiting. And I graduated, now I'm going to actually mention, I graduated during the recession.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't even understand, even though you know what a recession means.
But you don't know the effect of
internalize
recession.
it that,
Yeah.
okay, some of the reasons I'm not getting a role is because there is a recession. But that was an important like mind shift because it taught me like it's not just about
The
1 + 1
certificate.
does not always equal to in real life.
It could be 29.
Like, so you have to leave yourself for different, think about it more from applicable skills and how are you using problem solving, not only from like solving an equation, but say, okay, now I've graduated, I don't have a job, what do I do next? So I looked at it from, okay, life is now teaching you
What to do.
Life skills. But it's been a great experience. I've met so many people in the process. I really like Canada. I think I've been able to grow like in those different buckets.
Okay. So you find, I think what you said, like the experience might be different. As a student, you've been here for 4 years. You're not, when you want to start looking for a job, you're not actually just changing like, oh, I just moved to Canada. But when you get to the interview, that's when they remind you that, hey, you've never worked in this country.
Exactly.
And that's I have one of my friends that was actually talking about that on one of his podcasts. Like, when will Canada see a 1-year education study here, 1 year or 2 years, you even did 4 years, as experience in this country, right? Because they always say you need to understand Canadian culture. Someone that have lived there and studied here for 4 years, I think she understands Canadian culture already.
Or at least is the person, now I think being a student and being so young, I think most of my everyday was in between the 4 walls of my university. You don't actually, and where I went to school, there were also lots of international students.
Do you work during holidays?
No, I did not.
Okay, that might be the concern for the companies to say, okay, during that time, do you work or not?
Yeah, I worked, but I worked in school, so so it's still not. But at the end of the day, you are interacting with Canadians, so I think yes, you understand that the culture is different. Yeah. And even if you really don't understand the Canadian culture, it might take you 1 month, 2 months. It's not like a big deal that.
Exactly. And you learn as you go.
Yeah, you learn as you go. And I don't think there's like an expert in, well, I guess some people are expert, but most people are learning. And now there's so many immigrants. Even if you are not, if you go into a workplace, there are people from all other cultures. Yes. So even understanding the Canadian culture, it does not mean like you understand.
What is Canadian culture?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just be honest.
So now it's just like understanding how to respect people's culture.
Yeah, that's it.
That's really what will make you try. But then there were not as many immigrants. I think that made it tough. So now even your interviewer is likely an immigrant. There's more diversity right now. And I think that people, at least the people I see, they're having a better immigrant experience. I'm sure not everyone, but at least
I think it probably is getting better.
Yeah, right. I believe that it's
What about immigrants coming in? What do you think they should do to set themselves in a very good place to get mortgage?
I think as an immigrant coming in, one of the challenges I'll start is like you're getting information from several people. You're getting information from your friends, maybe family, then your own bank is telling you something.
Even from friends that are in the US that never lived in Canada.
Or you're getting from social media, and everybody just has different points of view. So I think the first important step is all that knowledge and skills that you've built in your country, it's not invalid. You don't have to drop everything. So if you're someone that aspired to buy a home or you already have a home in your own country, like that's not going to change because you're in Canada. So I think the first step is to remind yourself that remain confident. Don't just throw away everything you know, because I think that confidence is so important when you're trying to get a mortgage, or to even call a broker to talk to them. Some people just feel like, I don't qualify.
Yeah, I don't have money yet.
I don't have money. Yes. Like, when am I going to save enough? Or like, am I even going to get a job? So I think the first step is like, don't forget all your skills that you've gained is not just like, you're not starting from ground zero. Yes, it's in a different context. So I say,
come with this experience.
Come with that. And if your goal is to buy a house, I'll say always within the next 1-2 years, go to your bank or call a broker and say, okay, my plan is to buy a house in 2 years. What do I need to be doing? Okay. So the first thing is to build your credit. Okay. Credit is not free money. And the example I like to give is like if someone borrows you 1,000 and you don't pay back when you said you're going to pay back, you don't make your payments. How would that person feel comfortable?
Lend you 10,000.
Exactly, 10,000. And from a mortgage perspective, 400,000, 500,000. So I say treat your credit. It's not a random person. Look at it as somebody you really trust,
Okay.
and you value their opinion is lending you money, and make sure you keep to your agreements. Don't accumulate unnecessary loans, like car loans. You don't need to buy a 50,000 car, like if you're a new immigrant.
Okay.
Uh,
You
can.
hear that? You don't need to buy $50,000
You
car.
can, but you see people take on like large
Cause
debts
oh my goodness,
right away.
when you see people's credit and you ask where that mistake come from, and it's from coming in thinking they have to buy the Mercedes, the latest Mercedes at that time, just because they qualify to buy it.
Yeah.
It's one thing. Especially, to be honest, and I'm not trying to bash my community. I'm just trying to see how we can be better.
Yeah.
Especially now, some immigrant from my community, that's what they look for. Like, I need to buy the best car. So go on. Which would you advise? Don't buy something that is too much.
Yeah. And even if you can afford it, I think because you're in a new society, just start with a small car from the ground up.
Yes.
Now, in 1 year, you might realize like, okay, you can always sell it. People don't think like there's exit points. It doesn't mean like, okay, if I don't get my dream car, I'm never going to be able to start small, buy a basic car, small payments for now. It doesn't have to be super fancy. So that's the first thing. Don't get unnecessary loans, and also like minimal just to function, because at that point you're still learning what the society requires, how the financial system works, which is different again from most countries, at least from my own community. Okay. The next step here is you need income, obviously. If you're going to take on a huge liability, you need to be able to pay it back. So I think in the when you first come, like making that effort to get a good paying job or even become self-employed right away, whatever your path is, and start with a stable income so that you know that you're able to meet the financial obligations will be the first thing. And then the next thing is obviously saving. So saving for down payment. There are some people that actually bring quite a bit of savings because of the way they structure the proof of income. But either they run through it very quickly, or some people actually save it up and they use that as down payment. I've seen so many people that's actually how they started saving their down payment. Yeah. So I'll say that proof of funds is so important because it's so difficult in this community to save up a large sum. The biggest barrier for home ownership that I see is actually not the income, it's not the credit, it's the down payment.
Down payment.
Because you're paying rent, you're paying phone bill, if you have childcare. So to then save after all of that and then having enough, accumulating it to a point where you can use it for down payment is a barrier. So I think those are the main things, keeping your expenses so low so that you can actually save enough to get out of the rat race in quotes and getting a stable job or a stable self-employment so you can meet your financial obligations and good credit.
Okay. I think I've heard of credit. I always tell people when they come here, credit to them means like, oh no, I don't want to get a credit card. And I'm like, no, that's not the reason. Well. You're getting that credit card to show them that, hey, I can borrow money and return it.
Yeah.
So, and when you do that, spend the amount you know you can afford, put it back if you have the money, put it back in 3-4 days.
Yeah.
Not immediately, put it in 3-4 days. And if you do that, you're building that credit. Because there's nothing you can do in Canada without showing that credit score.
Yeah.
Even if you want to buy that car, they will still want to say, hey, do you have a credit card or anything? They will still want to see some. Except if you want to go buy a car from, of course, used one.
Yeah.
But if you want to get, like, you're going to be paying it every month, you need to do that. Let's switch to more of real estate. I'm happy you're an investor as well. And you're seeing a lot of people coming to you to get mortgage, both for their own home and as investment property. Mm-hmm. Where do you see deals? We've seen many things happen in our real estate industry over the last 12 months or 18 months, I would say. Where do you see a lot of people getting good deals in real estate, in Canada in general?
In terms of location?
Location, buying good investment property, or even primary home. Maybe people are deciding to move there because of the price or whatever.
In the last year, I think Alberta has been like, before Alberta's, I think prior to COVID, Alberta's market was like flat for like 10 years because of everything with the oil market and stuff. So in the last couple of years, the market has increased significantly. There's also a lot of new immigrants from out of country as well as from other provinces that have moved to Alberta. Yeah. And it's still relatively cheaper than BC and Ontario.
Okay.
So I've seen people move from Ontario to Alberta. I've also
Calgary,
seen
especially, and
Calgary
Edmonton,
and
right?
Edmonton, especially. I've also seen people that they've been in Calgary and Edmonton, but nobody was as crazy about real estate as Ontarians, so they were not even really thinking about it as a priority.
Oh, okay.
But now,
They're buying.
seeing that the market is
Picking up.
becoming unaffordable in quotes, they are starting to buy. So I think that's where I've seen like a huge demand. GTA also lots of demand. I think Hamilton, I've
Yes.
seen lots of people buy. A lot of real estate investors also went to, I'll say, Windsor and the northern areas.
London as well, right?
London, Ontario.
I've seen a lot of London
And
activities too.
Sudbury, North Bay, those areas also experienced a boost.
Okay.
But when the market crashed, those areas also suffered
The most.
most.
But from my own perspective, I think when the market come down, it starts from Toronto, obviously, or GTA. But those markets also get hit. But it's still going to be better than not buying if you can afford. Because I know someone that
Exactly.
bought a townhome in Kitchener for $218,000
That's
in
amazing.
2018 or 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And they bought a pre-con as well in Oshawa. They wanted to close on that pre-con 2021 or 22. They sold that townhouse in Kitchener for about close to $500,000.
Yep.
So even though Kitchener at that time, it's not a market that everybody want to rush to, right? Before. But now Kitchener is expensive.
Yeah.
I help a client to get a property. We couldn't get in Kitchener, we got in Cambridge, and it's on the high side as well. Of course, that property is still cheaper than what you would buy in Ajax.
Yeah.
Right? So the people you're seeing moving to Alberta, are you seeing more investors or just or like primary home owners moving there more than investors? Or you think you're seeing both of them?
I think both.
Okay.
So I know people that they live in Ontario, but they've always wished to buy an investment property.
Okay.
But they like the GTA market. But Calgary, if you've been there, it feels just like Toronto. So they like that it's also in a big city.
Okay.
They like that it's a brand new.
Home. Yeah, I know the
They
brand new
like
home is
the excitement of brand new, and then you have to worry about a lot of maintenance.
Yes.
So I've seen, especially new investors, that's the major concern. They are scared of unexpected maintenance costs for older houses.
Okay.
So I think the fact that they can go into that kind of market is not too expensive. The property is relatively new. It attracts them. But I find that for more seasoned investors, they don't really care about location as much. They're just looking at the numbers. They are the ones I see that they're okay with Sudbury, Windsor, like pretty much any market where the numbers make sense.
Okay. And I don't think investors, and that's why I always like, I mean, I work with first-time home buyers as well, but I find working with investor could be better. I mean, like, I find it easier because they don't put emotion in what they're buying. If the number does not make sense, they are not going to buy the property.
Yeah.
Even I won't advise them to buy the property. And things that we consider, like you mentioned now, newer home. I've seen this affect a lot of people that want to buy property, thinking they need a home that is built
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Investors
It's
will,
unnecessary.
a home that is built like 25, 30 years ago, it's not an
Yeah.
old home for an investor. Like,
Yeah.
as long as you can renovate it, make it better, rent it out for people that will live there, it's not a concern compared
And
to.
they would eventually appreciate the same way. To
Yeah,
be honest.
that's what I'm
So it's
like.
not like, yes, newer houses, initially there's that, but after like
But after
5, 10
7 years, it's like
kind of the same growth rate anyway.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I want us to also go back to our community now. In Canada, I think the community where we come from, either African, either Nigerian, or even black people in general, we are the lowest amount of people that own property in Canada.
Yeah.
It's not up. I think the property owned by black people in Canada is not up to 5% of the whole property in this country.
Wow.
And we are the one that buy some of the most expensive things in this country in terms of chain, cars,
That's true.
and I'm not going to teach anyone how to spend their money. But what do you think is causing that? Do you think, from my own perspective, I'm just going to give you my own opinion, and I want to hear your own opinion. I think it's lack of information,
Yeah.
lack of access to information, or even being open up to information, and not really trusting someone from your own community. Do you feel like that as well with our community?
Yes. Yes. Lack of information, I think it's a big one.
Okay.
But sometimes I don't think it's also our fault. I feel like there's been a lot of intergenerational inequality. Like, for example, if you're a new immigrant that came into this country, yes, you wish to buy a home, but you don't have a parent that your property has appreciated 200%. They can just take something and give it to
The-
you.
the
So we don't
parent
have
bank.
enough because either you're an immigrant or even for people here, because
Yes.
of the inequalities of the society, there's also less economic power. They don't have enough to be able to pass that on to their children.
Okay.
And also if you look at it from a new immigrant perspective, we don't have that equity from our parents or people passing homes. I had a client, not immigrant, not in our community, but part of the inheritance was a fully paid off multi-units of like 50 units. I was paying them over 100,000. The property is worth over 4 million. They just passed it on mortgage free to him. So now
God.
that's not like a regular
Yeah.
experience that you see from if you are either from a community or as a new immigrant. So I think that's the first barrier. And even if your parents cannot pass on like actual money, but at least they know how the system works.
Yes,
They know
Lord.
like once you start working, start saving and go and buy a property. Oh, I have a financial planner, talk to this person. There's so much wealth in even access to information beyond somebody being able to give you
give the
like
money.
funds for down payment. So I think that's the first. When you say lack of information, I think it stems from either lack of economic power or even lack of somebody to guide you.
Or even willingness to learn.
Or even, exactly, or
And
even
that's
willingness
where
to
it
learn.
comes to the trust
Yeah.
within your community. Because when you're not willing to learn because you don't know if you trust this person, then that's another problem, right?
Yeah.
So I want to know if you see that as well in the mortgage, because we see that a lot in real estate, right?
Yeah, it's across.
It's across the
Yeah,
whole
even
industry.
mortgage, I've heard people, I'm not going to name a community. I'm like, oh, I prefer working with people,
From
mortgage
here.
brokers from this community. So this is like your fellow Nigerian telling you that they'll rather not work with you. They'll work with
And-
somebody else. Not because you know me or my skill set, but you have that preconceived notion that this community is better at
And
this
I saw a video of Vuzi. Vuzi is one of the entrepreneurs in South Africa, and was talking about the community, a community that they always value to kind of help themselves. They do that within themselves first. Like they're going to buy from you what you're selling before they go to other person to buy from them. And it's not like they think that person is not good, but they think if they develop you, if you're better, you pass the knowledge to someone within the community.
Yeah.
And that's as I said, I don't want to mention that community as well, but look at that thing. I think it made the community strong.
Yeah.
Make them somehow ahead of us.
And it's the other way around. I've also had someone from that community in quotes that called my brokerage. They wanted to buy. A property. We're looking for pre-approval. So he said, "Oh, do you have someone from my community in your brokerage that can help me? Because I'll feel more comfortable working with."
I mean,
person."
obviously, some people
Whereas
do
you
that.
have someone that we're from the same community, like I'll rather work with
Someone else.
So
I mean, there are
there's-
some people that will
yeah.
get a call. They will be like, "Oh, is this because I see you're a Nigerian? I called you."
Yes.
Some people feel like
Yeah,
it's easy to have that communication, but the number of people that they do not trust their community, and it's not only actually black people. I feel
Yeah.
like I've seen some communities as well that they're not really. I think that union, that working together, can make things happen for them. Because, to be honest, the number of Nigerians, black community in Canada, is more than having just 5% of the property in this country.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have more than that. And I'm not trying to say, oh, everything must be about our community,
Yeah.
but we need to get better in that
Yeah.
in that scenario. I know you've talked about where you're seeing the investment opportunity coming up more. We talk about Calgary, we talk about the London of the world, we talk about Hamilton. What's your opinion about the market this year? I'm not trying to say you should predict. I'm not calling you a predictor here,
Yeah.
but I want to know your own opinion. Both of us come from data. I make decisions based on data.
Yeah.
With what have happened in the last 2 years, I think 2024 for sellers, because sellers are the one that I say will benefit now. Buyers might not believe that. Last year was their real main year.
Yes.
Do you feel like that things will change in terms of the interest rate, which we know when it comes down, the
Yeah,
price?
supply and
Do you
demand.
think that will happen this year? Just from your own perspective.
I think based on the numbers, the reason that rates became so high was because inflation was so high. So as a result, they had to increase the rates to curb that.
Yes.
Now inflation, I think the last around 3% plus or minus. Because inflation number is down, they're not going to start just reducing the rate because they don't want inflation to go right back up.
Yes.
But they are going to ease into it. Like this in 2023, even though all through the year there was so much concern, is Bank of Canada going to increase the rate? rates actually increased by 0.75%.
All the year.
Yeah, so most of the increase happened in 2022.
Two, yes.
2023, yes, it increased, but by not that much. But that uncertainty of not knowing, would it increase, would it hold or not, that's uncertainty is not good for any market, I'm sure you know.
Of course.
So that sent a lot of people to pause because they wanted to watch to see how things go. So I think 2023, uncertainty, yes, rates increased, but by not that much. Prices came down.
Yeah, of course. Price. A lot of my clients that got property last year, they're beginning to see that they can't even get that same property now for the price now in 2024 in January.
Yeah. So I think this year, I think we're going to have less uncertainty because I believe, even though Bank of Canada, they are told us rates will not go up, but they are also like acting based on the numbers as it comes out every day. So they don't know what's going to happen in 4 years. But I think because 2022 rates increased, 2022 rates increased, 2023 it's increased, but not. Yes, I think this year either we see stability or a little bit of softening. And if you translate that to prices, law of supply and demand, such in a market that the rates are more certain, we can see like a bit of upward trend in prices. And if rates come down, that trend is going to be more accelerated.
And people will rush into the market.
Yeah, people will rush into it. A lot of people last year that called, yes, they want to buy because that's one of their life goals, but they were waiting for 2024. So a lot of people, sellers that are waiting for the market to get better, buyers waiting for. So once the rates come down, everybody would rush in at the same time. And when that happens, you see prices go up. So from that perspective, I see 2024 as being a more active real estate market. I think prices are going to increase. But from an affordability perspective, it's going to negate because rates are also going to fall.
And that for affordability that a lot of people are waiting for, it's not. I think it's not going to be there. Yeah. I know we're about to round up. I've been seeing that sign from there saying the time is up. But I'm going to really, before I let you go, one, I know you are active on social media. I want to know where people can first reach out to you if they need help about mortgage, either immigrant. You do commercial real estate as well?
Yes.
Commercial mortgage?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so where people can reach out to you, Instagram, the name, I'm going to put it in the description actually. And how you think people can maybe call you if they can't send message on Instagram or anything. I want you to talk about that. And I think do that first, just for us to round up.
Okay.
Where people can get in touch with you.
Okay, you can find me on Instagram. My @ is Mortgages by Dammy, Dammy. And you can also, the best way to reach me, you can also just book an appointment in my calendar, calendly.com/mortgages by Dammy.
You have that on your Instagram too, right?
Yes, I have that on my Instagram. So if you go to Instagram, really, you know, either book a call with me, DM me. I also have my number on there. You can call me.
Okay. When you call Dammy, I'm very sure she's going to be able to help you. She's been in the industry and she's been doing something that she loves. And I think that is the kind of mortgage broker you want to work with. To round it up, you're a business owner. How are you being able to cope as a mother and a business owner? Because I know a lot of people, when they want to get into business, I'm like, I have 2 boys, I have 2 kids, or I have 3 girls. How can I cope? And seeing you as a mother, obviously I don't know how many kids you have, but seeing you that you have kids, how do you cope?
It's tough. I'm still learning. I don't think I figured it out, but it's definitely a big change because when you're working 9 to 5, you know, you drop your child before school, you pick them up, and then you have time.
Yes.
But in this side of work, people are actually available after 5 because they are done working.
Yes.
So you don't really have a closing time. You're also working weekends. So I think I'll go back to it's very important to love what you do. So right now, I think my work life is integrated with my home life, but of course, still make your family priority because they are going to always be there for you, and you also hold them to be there. Okay. So I would say I don't have any magic tricks. I'm still learning.
You're just learning as you go. And I think that's one thing about business, even if you have kids or not, you learn as you go and everything. You
learn as you go. I think from the experience of my parents are business owners, and they've had their business from a very young age. Even though they are super busy, I feel like they were always there for me.
They were still creating time for their kids.
Yes, but I think that the way that was able to work, they were able to bring us along. Like, into everything. We knew the decisions. We'll go with them. We'll come back. So even when we're discussing business, it's like as a family.
So we may be expecting someone like one of your kids to be a mortgage broker or something?
I don't know, but
I'm
I
joking.
think somewhere in the
In the middle of business, you find them
yeah,
there,
I
right?
think so. Yes, I'm hopeful.
You're hoping for that, right?
Yeah.
I genuinely appreciate it. It's raining snow outside.
Yes.
If I'm in your shoe, maybe I will say, let's cancel this podcast. I'm not coming as is. You drove down here. You honor this invitation. I genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you
And
so
I
much
hope
for
we're going to
inviting
have,
me.
I hope we're going to have more time to do either more webinars to educate people and do a lot of collaboration together and how we can help our community especially to get up there.
Yes.
Thank you
so
so
much for inviting me. This has actually been a very fun conversation, and
Thank
I'm
you.
glad that we're able to finally
Do
sit
it.
down together to do the podcast.
It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
We've been planning it for a long time,
Yes.
but we finally do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.